converting percents to fractions and decimals. So let's review starting out if we get a percent, we're given a percent and we need to convert that to a fraction and or a decimal, how we're going to do that. So we'll work in this middle section here, right over here. I think it's the back of your brochure. And let's start with an example of 75%, which is kind of a benchmark percent or decimal right over here, but we can say 75%. And the first thing we want to do is we want to turn this into a decimal. It's a percent, and we want to turn it into a decimal. Got the percent sign in there. So if you can recall, when we turn a percent into a decimal, I'll write that in, decimal real quick, scribble it in. But the decimal point is kind of, really it's at the end. It's not really a whole number because percents aren't whole numbers, but if we had a decimal, it would kind of be at the end with the percent. So all we're going to do is back it up 2 places. So we just come back 1, 2. So 75%, instead of moving forward 2 places to the right, we go 2 places to the left, and that would equal a decimal of 75 hundredths. Remember, 75% is a part of something. A percent is not all of it, it's part of something. And 75 hundredths is not all of something. It's 75 hundredths. It's not a whole. It's not 100 hundredths. So that's why we turn it into the decimal 0.75. So now from there, can we turn this into a fraction? Well, first we turn it into the decimal, 75 hundredths. So like we've done before, we can take away the decimal and put the 75 over 100. So right there we've turned it into a fraction. It looks good, but we want to remember this, of course. Don't forget to simplify your fraction. 75 100ths can be simplified, and if you think of quarters, which a lot of you guys can relate that to, 25 goes into both values. You could also reduce by 5s if you needed to and wanted to, but 25 is going to be a more direct way to simplify it to the lowest term. So 25 goes into 75 3 times and goes into 100 4 times. So 75% turns into the decimal 75 hundredths and the fraction 3/4. If you had 75 cents in your pocket, you'd have 3/4 of a dollar, 4 quarters make a dollar, or you'd have 75% of a dollar. If you're ever given a percent in the hundreds, so let's say you're given, y'all have some extra space somewhere, you can kind of jot this down. I know you're probably running out of space, but if you had something like 350% and you wanted to turn this into a decimal and a fraction, remember, steps stay the same. Again, you still move the decimal back 2 places to turn it into a decimal point, which would make it 3 and 50 hundredths, or 5 tenths, because 350 means you have over 100. You have a full over 100%, so you have 3 kind of wholes of something right over here. And then if we want to take 3 and 50 hundredths and turn that into a fraction, really the easiest way is to leave the 3 by itself. We don't need to mess with that, and we can look at the 50 hundredths and say 50 over 100, and then from there we don't forget to simplify. We simplify 50 hundredths, so that equals 3 and 1/2, because we can simplify by 50. 50 goes into itself once and 100 twice. So that's how you're going to do it if you have a percent over 100 right there. I want you to try these practice real quick. I'm going to give you 30% to try to turn that into a fraction and a decimal. And then one of these high ones, try 125% over here, turning that into a fraction and a decimal, and see how you do. So let's see how you guys did with the practice. 30%, if you look at the one on the left, turn it into a decimal by moving that decimal point back 2 spaces to the left to get 0.30. Right there is the decimal conversion of 30%. And then if we want to turn that into a fraction, we'll take 30 hundredths, 30, and put it over 100. And we get 30 hundredths, but we can simplify that. 10 goes into both of them. If the number ends in 0, 10 is going to go to it. 5 would also, but 10 will be a little bit faster. And we can get that down to 3 tenths, and 3 tenths is the simplified version of 30%, or 30 hundredths. If you look at 125%, once you're over 100, remember, you're going to get a number in the ones place. So we move the decimal over 2 spots to the left to get 1.2 0.25 or 1 in 25 hundredths right there. And then to turn that into a fraction, we've got the 1 in the ones place, so we can just leave it right here like I have and put 25 over 100 and then simplify. We don't forget to simplify. Remember your little simplify man right over here. 25 and 100, we can use quarters. 25 goes into itself one time and goes into 100 4 times. So simplify to 1 and 1/4.